Welcome to our Wheel of Time chat. If it's not clear, I'm very under the weather, so please bear with us during this conversation. Whoa, why is it doing that? Ooh, I had the link open to paste it, and then I heard myself talking, and that really threw me off for a second. That was creepy and weird. Hello, Chris. Good evening to you.
Hi,
So we are at episode 7 already, which is wild to me. Like I said that last week with episode 6, but I feel like we are edging towards a decent show, like slowly. So we've got stuff to talk about, and most of it on my end is good. There's of course going to be a few little nitpicky things, but standard question: what did you rate our episode out of 10?
I gave this another 8, although it is a more softer 8, where the other one was a definite 8.
Okay.
Uh, um, but yeah, I still think, like you were saying, I think they're moving into a really good thing. Or maybe I've just embraced the fact that
Maybe
it's not the book.
it's possible. Yeah.
And because these chats are supposed to be book versus,
Show, yeah.
book versus show, but I'm just gonna look at the show anymore, and I think I'm actually just embracing some of the chaos. Like you, I will still have some nitpicks about things that are happening, but I thought it was another strong episode. There were some weaker moments. I would almost go down to a 7.5 on this one, because I think I think the last episode was better, but it was still a pretty good episode. Really
I mean,
fun.
it's interesting you feel that way. Hello,
Exactly,
Luna.
Chris.
Thought you would have liked this episode more than last episode, so I'm a little surprised by that. But
It's very thin, so I did
okay.
rate it technically the same score, but I did like the last episode a little more. Yeah.
Okay, I actually liked this episode a little bit more.
Okay.
I was probably in the realm of an 8, probably.
Cool.
I'll
Wow.
see how I feel at the end of the episode. I would say probably that this was the episode I've liked best out of every episode, including season 1. Um,
I feel like this season, whereas, and we can probably discuss that when we do our total season wrap up. But I mean, and we haven't seen the last episode yet. But I will say, I feel like this season has been a consistent upward direction with every passing episode.
I feel
Whereas,
slightly differently, but I do
really,
feel like
okay,
it has trended more upwards than
whereas, okay,
downwards.
whereas first season was like a hill, you
Yeah,
know,
it was very up and down, but
down.
for me this season, out of the first 3 episodes, episode 3 was hands down the best one with Nynaeve's trial.
Yep.
And then I felt really until last, so I guess other than 3, 6 was okay, that was last week, and then 7, which was this week, I thought was pretty good.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that bar was really, really low. So they really only had upwards to go. So that's it's been good that they've
Yeah,
been appeasing us on that note. But
exactly.
to jump into our episode, we finally have Sue on, which we had a little bit of her last episode, but we know that we're gearing up to have a lot of Sue on in this episode.
Mhm.
And I really appreciated how many nautical and aquatic references slash sayings they gave to Suan. Of course, this is very keeping with her character, but the episode opens with this flashback scene, and she says to Moraine at some point, I row beside you, and like all these things like that. So I was definitely happy that they kept that in. I will say though, I don't know if I needed this scene of the prophecy kind of coming into place, because of the fact that we've already asserted multiple times that Rand is the dragon reborn. And in the book, the conversations between or not Matt, excuse me, Rand and Suan take place in Shynara, and none of this stuff happens in Kyrene. So I agree. The flashback should have definitely been last season. If they wanted to really emphasize the relationship between Matt and Ren, like honestly, if they wanted to, that could have been their opener for the whole
Mhm.
series, because we didn't get the book prologue, which I'm gonna be bitter about forever and ever. And the fact was at the end of the pilot that Moraine tells them, right? Like there was this prophecy, blah, 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 blah. So it would have connected the episode probably really well. So yeah, I just didn't need this scene personally.
Yeah, I didn't. I thought it was weaker. Definitely not something totally like you said. I felt like the information was all there's Yoshi. Sorry. Um, I
I
I I I feel like it was all repetitive
yeah.
information, even with the introduction with Katana. I think that was her name, Katara or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, I will say, cool note to give Haley Mills a role. We haven't seen her since
Yeah, I saw
Parent
that. I
Trap.
paused it and I was like, "Oh, Haley Mills."
Yeah, I
Okay.
know. I was like, oh, cool. The one thing I did appreciate about the scene was actually just it was like a little small thing, but I like noticing those things. Uh, is the way they had, despite them both wearing blue, both being Aes Sedai, they had Swan in still kind of like a fisherman's blue.
Yeah.
The way the class system was still there. Swan coming from a poor fishing village, and Moraine, coming from a higher class. So I thought that was a nice touch on the way they were dressed. But
I agree.
otherwise, yeah, I thought it was just a repetitive scene that could have been put into last season for sure.
I agree. Elena, remind me of this when we get to the end of the episode because yeah, that is something that I want to
And
address.
but I do think the reason why they put it in now is because of how the episode ended. I think it was supposed to be the tie between that first scene to the last scene we got in this episode.
So I'm fine with them giving more context for Moraine, but I feel like they've wasted so much time on her this season for poor plot. So it just could have been done differently, in my opinion. But one thing I will say that they did really well is the Lan and Rand dynamic and scene. This was something that definitely takes place in the Great Hunt. It's at the beginning of the Great Hunt because Rand hasn't left at the end of the first season or first book at the end of Eye of the World. So, and that was a really fundamental thing for Rand was learning from Lan how to fight, the importance of the heron marked blade, which of course they kind of alluded to again and stuff like that, but it doesn't have the meaning in the show that it does in the book.
Right. Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
was thrilled to have this scene. I gave it a check. This was really pleasing to me. One, because it is a direct, almost pretty close to a direct thing from the book.
Yeah, he said
Was
"chasing on your feet," which I thought was a direct quote. I could be wrong,
mhm.
but I remembered that line. It
And
stuck
I
out.
do think it was like the first time we got like actual names of the sword forms that are prominent in the book. As you said though, that it wasn't the impact might have not been there for the audience because we never really got to talk about sword forms or any of that because we never had the like the training or anything like that or
Yeah.
anything. We had some small training, but that's it. So, but I am very pleased to have that, and it just felt like Lan was back to being Lan rather than this like
Passive
passive
person.
stat
Yeah.
that we've gotten in the last 6 episodes with him. So,
Agreed. Okay, so this took me off guard initially when it happened. I thought for sure that Lanfear targeted Matt when he was asleep and that Matt was sleeping because I was like, this is a really big distance for him to jump here. And I was disappointed with this. I will say off the bat, Matt's storyline for me is the sorest spot for this whole episode. I don't know why they're continuing to lean into this. My prediction is because they're going to say, even though Matt is so inclined to the dark, he's going to have this big redemptive moment in the finale and he's going to blow the horn and it's going to be so great. And I'm like, or we could just, have Matt not be consistently viewed as being this dark figure or whatever. I know that travel can work differently for the Forsaken and Lanfear specifically and stuff like that. So it definitely was a little confusing. Really.
yeah, I had I felt like every scene with Matt was cringe in this. Um, episode, and it's kind of why it fell a little. One of the reasons why this episode fell a little further for me from last
Yeah.
episode, and I was crying for Matt last episode. More Matt, give
Yeah.
us more Matt, and I was like, give us less Matt, give us less Matt, because
Yeah.
because
I don't want this Matt. Take
I
this Matt
still
away.
don't, and this Chris brings up a good point. I don't think they know what they want to do with Matt,
No, I really
because
don't think so either.
they're trying to recon. I still think they're trying to recon from last season with the
Yeah.
actor change and all of that, and where they had to end with Matt. So my thing is, why didn't Matt? They should have just kept Matt with Rand
Yeah,
during
so
this. That would have been, to me, an easy fix
yeah, I
rather than
agree.
this bizarro world.
Mhm.
And I did put down convenience plot to just magically transport Matt to Foam.
I agree. So
And then the other note I made was Lanfear is in a pantsuit, but
I
that's
made
the
that
point.
note too. I was like,
But
in black
I
again.
think it's their modern attire from their Age of Legends kind of
Yes,
thing. This is
but
what it was, but
definitely in black again. But she's in white later in the episode, which I was very happy
yes,
about. So that
yes.
was good.
That
Um,
outfit's killer. That outfit.
yes, I
It,
really loved
I
that
think it's
look.
more impactful when she's in that white than when
Definitely.
any of the black outfits she's in.
100% agree.
Yeah.
So I had a moment where I had to pause it last night and go, wait, how does she know that? And it was when Nynaeve and Elaine are traveling through Falm, where I haven't said it in a while, but I'm gonna say it now. Nynaeve is once again being the absolute worst. Like, she has screwed up multiple times, and Elaine has saved her life, but she's treating Elaine like shit. And I'm like, Nynaeve, stop
I
talking. Like,
I feel like Elaine has been treated like shit by both girls, honestly. Even like Egwene, I
yeah,
feel like she's been just like she's like being ignored. Like nobody like
yeah,
listens to Elaine. And I think it was like kind of opposite in the book. Now, Naive is stubborn, and I think there was a little bit of a character in her, and I did laugh at the whole "we're gonna do things my way" Elaine, and I thought that was hilarious. The
yeah.
look Naive gave her, and I laughed at that.
I mean, I thought it was
So
classic Nynaeve,
yeah,
and
it
I think
was
that Zoe
classic.
Robbins does a very good job portraying Nynaeve. It's just
Yeah.
the lines that they give her make me want to punch her. I'm like, you're so frustrating. It's just so aggravating. But I get for people that are a Nynaeve stan that they're like, yeah, Nynaeve, she's doing it. And I'm like, or she's just getting them all killed. I mean, whatever, it's fine.
Um,
There was that. But the thing that I had to remind myself of was she was referencing Perrin. Like Elaine was referencing Perrin
mhm.
to Nynaeve. And I was like, how does she know that they're together again? And then I was like, oh yeah, because of Leandrin. Like I had to really think about that one because it had been a hot minute before, like, since that had been addressed. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, were they still exchanging letters somehow that I just didn't remember? Like, I don't know. For some reason, for me, that didn't land because I really just had to think about it more than I should have.
Right.
But that was probably just me. So I don't know. But I did like the scene where Loyal is bowing to Elaine and like keeps talking in a very loyal way. I was like, this is appropriate. Very
Yeah.
loyal
Now
behavior.
I know that's further along, but I love that little scene too because I you know me, I love Naive, and I loved when she said when he was bowing to the daughter, or don't encourage her,
Yeah, don't encourage
and
her.
and
Exactly. I
then
thought that was
and
funny
then
too. I actually laughed at that. I was like,
and
"Okay,
then
yeah.
the other one where she's like, yeah, yeah, in the tree or whatever when
Yeah,
the falcon
exactly." Yeah, I had to laugh at that whole thing too. I was like, "This is a good scene." Like, honestly,
yeah,
this
that was
dynamic
a
is
good
good.
scene.
But of course, like, this doesn't happen in the books. The
No, no,
kennels
no.
are not the place that Egwene is being kept, and she doesn't have that hideous pacifier that's then put in her mouth. Like, I was really upset by this, not because of Egwene's suffering in terms of costume design for me. This is such an issue.
I
Like,
hate it.
it
I
looks
absolutely
so
hate
stupid.
it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It just looks so dumb. And you sit there, and for me, when I'm thinking about costuming that much, it takes me out of a story like music does when I feel that it
I
doesn't fit a scene.
I the lose the because it's so hilarious.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's
just looks
silly.
ridiculous.
It's and it does. It takes away the seriousness of it
Yeah,
because
exactly.
there's
I'm like,
this thing in there, and you're I get it. That's the point of the leash and the collar. That's already
exactly.
the humiliation part. You don't need this extra baby pat thing in your mouth, and it was a bad choice, I think, but
So, in
whatever.
regards to this comment, Chris Palmer, I feel like it would have been more impactful to have the women with nothing in their mouth just too afraid to speak. Like that to me
Is
has
more
more
impactful.
imagery than a pacifier blocking their ability to speak. Fear is what you need. It's just fear. And based on the abuse factor that they emphasized on last episode, I feel like that would have been way better.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And I mean, yeah, again, and
it's
that
just
goes back
it's
to the leash and collar. That's the purpose of that tool.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I did get really excited when they mentioned the Ogier map. Brown Aja once again for the win.
I love this little scene.
I do.
It's a
So like the
one.
Brown Aja are just the best. I'm just gonna say it from now until forever. That little group of Brown Aja are just like perfection. I love them so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this whole thing, and you just get it again. You get a lot of in the scene. You got again. We kind of get a little more reminiscent of the different types of Aja. We see Joya. I think her name is the bald-headed red slash black Aja, just kind of crossing the courtyard.
Yes.
The one thing I did not like was Yvonne, the warder Yvonne, telling Alana he does not trust Viren. I didn't.
Yeah, I agree. But I
Why?
feel like
Why?
they have that kind of relationship though.
Yeah, but I would think. I mean, a lot of people had mistrust for Viren in the book, but because she can be a little bit shady, and I think
Aloof.
some of the smarter Aes Sedai see under her facade, of
Right.
that absent-mindedness, flighty kind of way she acts. But I still liked the whole dynamic there, but it was pretty cool. And I guess, yeah, they all know that there's a Forsaken in the city apparently too. So, yes, ciao. Yeah, Harry Potter.
Ravenclaw and Brown.
Yeah, I was like, how fitting to be Brown Aja from a Ravenclaw,
I
right?
know. It just warms my heart so much and confirms everything I think about myself. I'm like, all right, great. So yeah, I enjoyed that. But then we jumped to Moraine once again sucking and being terrible. Like, I'm so glad by the end of this episode, we are hopefully done with this storyline because I feel that we've wasted 7 episodes on Moraine
Yeah,
being
yeah.
terrible.
I think my initial reaction to this, I'm like, oh my god, make this end. I think I said it out loud. And my spouse, sitting, we're watching the show, and I'm like, please make this end. This. I'm so tired of this Lan and Moraine arguing
Yeah.
crap. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're right. I think we're finally done with this horrible storyline.
The
And
thing is that's so upsetting, and I feel like they've done a disservice because book readers will know Moraine is cold, but she's not like cold-hearted. She's well-intentioned, but she goes about doing things to make sure that the proper outcome comes about.
right,
And if she has to make a tough decision, she's going to make it.
yeah,
But to just the television audience, she's just come across as terrible,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they're going to have to do so much damage control going forward for her character.
I told you, my friends like who never read the books
Yes.
but watch the show, they go, "Am I supposed to not like Moraine because I don't like her?"
Yeah, exactly. It was super anticlimactic, but don't worry, we'll get there.
um,
So go
yeah.
ahead.
No, no, I was gonna say, no, no, that's it. That's it. I was done. I'm just like tired of this scenario. So
So the conversation where Suan meets Rand, I genuinely liked. I wrote a couple of her sayings down. As sure as roe makes fish like bait fish. But the one thing that she says that is enraging is we would have been better off if you were a girl. And I was like, okay, we're still really leaning into this notion that the dragon could be female. And this is a very big difference between the book conversation between Suan and Rand versus show conversation. Because in the book, Suan is kind of just interested as to who he is. And she's manipulating him behind the scenes with Moraine. And they let him go. That's the big thing is they
Yeah,
let him go, hoping
yeah,
that he will make the decisions that they are anticipating him to make.
yeah. I don't know what they're doing with Swan at this point now. This was the other thing I did not like about this episode was them doing this 180 with Swan's character.
Yeah.
This is going to, I'm wondering what direction this is going to take her character
Mhm.
since she is part of this now shielding Rand. He makes that line, I won't live in your cage. This is very detrimental. When Rand in the books first gets shielded by Aes Sedai,
Yeah.
shit goes down. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I think I want to say it's book 6 where this happens to him, and um, so it's going to lose that impact if they try to do this again, I think.
Yep.
But I was so disappointed because Swan is another character here who, if they continue with her storyline, and I kind of think they will, uh, you feel a lot of sympathy for her. And here I just feel like
Yeah.
it's
100%.
dumb to, and it just goes to show that what I wrote down is, and it happens a little later where Moraine comes in with Lan, but okay, Moraine and Lan patch things up. Now we're going to have the Moraine and Swan anti-antagonist thing. It's like, why does Moraine always have
Yeah.
to be antagonistic with the
At
people
odds with
closest to
someone.
her, especially the people closest to her, the people that you grew up with?
Yes. Exactly.
Don't change your narrative with these people. You grew
Agreed.
the relationship with Rand. Let's have a giant 6-episode antagonistic battle with each other, and now we're doing it with Swan. And I don't know. Like I said, this is like kind of why this episode went a little below last episode for me.
That's fair. Honestly,
With
that's fair.
Swan, I was just disappointed that they took this direction. But
I
I mean,
agree.
that's just me, my opinion. I
I think
maybe
that's the general consensus.
people want a change from the books. I just wanted that status consistent.
I feel like that's it, in terms of changes from the books and things we've talked about, I don't think that's one of the changes that people would be voting for. Hey, Daniel, something
Hey,
like this.
Daniel. Oh, interesting.
Okay,
That might
maybe.
be a possibility then.
But they
Yeah.
haven't explained compulsion at all. So that's kind of, but I mean, the show doesn't explain a lot of things. So that could very well be the case. Honestly, I don't know. Yeah. So we'll see where that goes. But before we get to that whole dynamic at the Waygate, we need to talk about Renna. We talked about her a little bit last episode, but she is not a good actor. I'm sorry, y'all. Do you think she's a good actor? Because like I can't get behind it. She's way too monotone for me.
I wonder if that was intentionally by this actress and they just kind of went with it.
Mhm.
I will say I liked it a little. I liked her a little more in the last episode,
Yeah.
especially with the tree scene. I thought that was a little better. But here, yeah, I was. Oh, well, Gwen, you're gonna be so awesome, and just
Yeah.
don't embarrass me, and it's like, um,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree here.
I agree, Elena.
I do think my opinion of the actress has changed a little bit.
Also, one of
Um,
the things that they've changed is that she ended up changing Egwene's name in the
yeah,
book because Egwene wasn't
I
cooperating.
I think that's probably going to happen this last episode
Do you
now,
think so?
with that later scene we'll get to with her and Egwene.
Yeah.
Um, but I did like the prop to the little exchange where Rena told that one the trainer, she said she allowed Egwene to keep her name, and you can kind of tell that
The
She thought,
disdain.
yeah, she was like the disdain on the other. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah,
Again, like those little things. I like those little details they do
I
include in
agree.
the show, and I thought that was one of them that I thought was pretty cool. So
Yeah, I agree, Daniel. I think it's weird, but yeah, it doesn't fit properly also. And I mean, this is something we kind of talked about last season. I get that cities are multicultural and so forth, but the Shanchen seem to have every race represented. And I'm like, who are these people supposed to be? Because the accents are completely different and the race is completely different. And I'm like, it doesn't seem like they're a collective people. It seems like they're a weird amalgamation of people that call themselves the Shanchen. So it just, to me, it seems very odd because in the book, it comes across as no, these are the Shanchen, and then there's everybody else kind of thing.
right.
So I thought that was a little an awkward choice. Is it accurate to the books having this like weird cluster? Because I totally read it wrong then if that's the case, but please do let me know. So yeah, wasn't here for Rena this episode, but obviously we're super leaning into the fact that they really wanted Egwene to be the Dragon Reborn. It seems like because they keep giving her this like crazy amount of power and all that kind of stuff, but it's fine. One thing though that you and I discussed last season is technology in this world, right? And how in the previous age it was a super technological age, which we saw in the cold open. And all right, they had people from an entire continent and all over. Okay, that's interesting because yeah, I misread that then. But that's good to know going forward. So Ishmael actually mentions technology in this episode, which I thought was really interesting, and how people have forgotten a lot from his time when he's talking to Matt. Of course, I don't really like this whole interaction that they've got going on for Matt and this tea thing that he's brewing, but I do find it interesting that they are alluding to the fact that he comes from a very technological age, how this age has regressed in terms of what they know and what they remember. But the thing that is important, I feel, from this conversation, and I'm curious on your opinion on this, is the fact that we slowly get Ishmael's motivations for why he's done what he's done. And I think it still affects you more if you have book background, in the sense that you understand Ishmael is more of a philosopher, in the sense that he realizes the dark just needs to win one time and then it's over. And that ends this terrible cycle of rebirth. So I thought that was a little bit interesting to have in this conversation. But what did you think of this conversation?
Um, I had a hard time just getting invested in this, honestly, a little bit. I he and it's tough because Ishi is a little different, of course, presented here than he is in the books. Um, I always I always assumed he was just he's probably the closest to the Dark One we have as a representation of the Dark One. In fact,
Sure.
as we know in the books, he gets misinterpreted as being the Dark One
Yes, often.
for a couple books.
Mhm.
So, in fact, Rand doesn't even know it is Ishmael until later
Yeah.
that he had his battle with him and Falm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, his motivations are just. I think it's his motivations are more chaotic. I think book wise, I think they're just destruction and for Rand to lose. And this one's a little different. This one we're given a little more. I feel like it's a little different. I don't mind too much of the change. It was just this interaction with Matt altogether that just I don't know why
Yeah.
Matt. But
The whole thing.
I'm wondering if they're tying in Matt with his connections to the old because he has like
Old Manetheren.
yeah, old Maratharan, and he's the one who has those old connections to that more so,
Maybe.
and maybe that's why he's presenting this to Matt.
I don't know.
But
But I
that's I agree with Alana. There are more sophisticated Forsaken males
yeah.
that this actor could fulfill. I see him actually actually the way this actor looks, he looks more like Demandred to me than he does Ishmael. But um, that's just me.
Yeah, so this whole scene, we'll
But
get back to it. But okay, we have more of Avienda and Perrin in this episode. So I have a question for you because I know you like Avienda. I'm kind of fine with Avienda, but she doesn't do anything crazy for me. Um, did you feel like this was necessary for this episode, or could this have been established later? The Jaito, is that what it's called?
the yeah, well, you could just call it toe or whatever.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So there is an interaction with this the Aiel in the Great Hunt, and
yeah.
I do think there is the establishment that this Jolene does pass away.
So
Um,
I can't
I
remember if it's
actually, I
at that
actually,
point
um, I
because
actually,
Nynaeve heals her.
what's that?
Nynaeve heals
He'll,
her at one point,
yeah,
and then she dies later.
later.
Yeah.
I, you know what? Honestly, I'm gonna say this. I liked this whole scene. I think I one thing they seem to be doing really well so far on is the IEL.
Okay.
I think when we meet Ban and Chad, I couldn't picture anything differently for
That's
those two
fair. I
characters.
agree. I thought that the three
Um,
of them are well
in fact,
cast.
Avienda is the only one that to me doesn't feel
Like Avienda.
Avienda.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give the actress a chance here. But they did the Maiden of Spear hand gestures. I appreciate that. The toe of Avienda failing Jolene or whatever her name
Yeah,
was,
Jolene.
and pretty much she decides and they beat her up until she decides
Yeah.
that she is, fulfilled her
Yeah, she's
punishment,
done her oath or her
or
punishment.
done her
Yeah.
title. So I like this. I'm not quite sure it does need to be here though to answer your question.
Yeah.
So I will say that the Aiel have no interaction with the Sanchen at this point in time. So adding another, civilization of people at the same time as we just getting to know the Sanchen, I think might have been a little too much. But I allowed it because I enjoyed the scene. I think they did a really good job with the IL.
I allowed it. I like that.
I know I allowed it. I called them up and said, "Okay, I approve."
I approve. Big check mark here.
No, but
In terms of
I like the interaction.
that's good. Elena, in
Does it
terms of
belong here? Probably
answering,
not. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, here's the thing with the romances, right? I have a gripe with the romances in the book. So I'm okay if we have a bit less of that and less obsessiveness about Rand personally. But I do feel like it's gonna get complicated. Like if they don't have Elaine super in love with Rand, I'm fine with that. But Min is gonna be more complicated, I feel like, because Min and Rand are supposed to have a lot of stuff going on.
They
So
had
I am,
they had one small interaction back in season 1.
and that's it.
And
Yeah.
that was gonna be my I do have a note about Min, but I'll save it for the last part of the episode.
Okay. I'm relieved to have gotten the stamp of approval from Christopher Navo. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so we then get back officially to this Matt scene, to which I wrote WTF in caps. Was that Matt scene? Because I had no words at the end of this scene. I was like, this is the most absurdest thing that I've seen in a really long time. So
Yeah.
it's just moronic, in my opinion, that they continue to do this. The guy that's playing Matt is a really good actor and he's being completely underutilized again. So I think at this point, our best hope is that they're trying to convince the audience that he's turning dark. And then next episode, they're going to go, fake out. We got you. He blows the horn. Matt is redeemed. But at this point, it's kind of just, it won't have as much meaning, I feel like. I don't know. It's hard to I would love to have a conversation with non-book readers and ask them, "How do you feel about Matt?" And then if he does blow the horn, because if he doesn't, there's gonna be a riot, and I think they'll lose the majority of their watching fan base of book readers. Um, so yeah, I'm just curious to see what happens. Yeah, that's the thing. It made a lot of people laugh. It just was
Yeah.
it was so out of context and place. It was really, really strange.
Yeah,
But
and just the mm, is she being really, like, intimate and, like,
yeah, like
touchy-feely with
caressing
him?
him.
I'm
Yeah.
like I'm like, this should be land fear or something, but maybe they're going into this, different direction, who knows?
Yeah.
But
Yes. Wheel of Time, horror. Um,
but
so
yeah, it wasn't the whole Matt thing was like, what, you know,
highly
they should have
questionable.
just kept them with Rand.
I agree. The thing
Simple
that I'm
solution,
hoping
simple
for
solution. They
that
would have
we
all
talked yeah.
um,
I mean, we talked about this last week, or last Sunday, because it's the same week.
I just
Um,
don't understand why they have to. It's like a stamp for them to keep everybody separated. No, I get it. The separations do happen. Egwene gets separated from Naive and Elaine, but I don't know why. Yeah,
yeah.
to me, yeah.
Mhm. So the conversation between Suan and Maureen, Suan had a line where she says, "For your pride," to Maureen, basically. And I was like, yes, Suan. Like rooting on Suan because she's absolutely right in this context that because in the show, Rand has had zero training. He has no idea what the hell is going on and is just utterly confused most of the time.
Right.
And Suwan's looking at this and going, we can't fail here. And thus far, we're failing. You, at this point, we are led to believe that she's been stilled. You haven't told anybody, like all of these things. And Suwan's looking at it and going, what have you been doing for the last 6 months? I think she says that almost as a direct quote. And as an audience viewer, I'm sitting there going like, yeah, Suwan, I completely agree. Maureen has been the worst. And I feel like the impact that they were hoping it to have in terms of these two were so intimate, they had this loving relationship, and now they don't feel this way. I'm like, this is lost because you've made Maureen so unlikable this whole season that I don't care, and I'm rooting for Suan in this whole scene, but it is what it is, I guess. I don't know. Like,
Mm.
yeah.
I Yeah, I don't really have too much notes on this portion. I agree that with the Swan line,
Mhm.
but the whole keeping the shield on Mirand and the whole thing, I think it was supposed to represent like just this like humbling moment for both of them because Rand has been a little cocky himself and a little more sure of himself, I think.
Yeah.
But who knows?
In terms of this comment, Daniel, I mean, I feel like he never gives a clear answer in the show or in real life. We're kind of just all grasping at straws most of the time. But okay, so another thing that happens in the show that definitely does not happen in the book is the dark friend nephew. This is a completely new plot with Leandrin showing up because we have to give Leandrin screen time in every episode, which I just don't understand. I mean, like, the fact that Leandrin has had 5 times as much screen time as Perrin to me is mind-boggling. I'm like, what is going on? Um, so there's
Mm,
that whole
yeah.
thing. I mean, I really like Lindsay Duncan a lot as an actress, so I'm always happy to see her fine. But the nephew being a dark friend, I found to be really unnecessary. This to me is just wasted time that we could have applied to one of the main people in the show. So how did you feel about our Damodred heir being a dark friend?
it was I will say this. It was like, "Oh, whoa, he's a dark friend," and then I was like, "Okay, well," it was like it was a surprise to me. I will say that.
Mhm.
I thought it was just a kind of like a filler scene, like you said, utilizing Lindsay Duncan's talent to be in the show for some reason and having the nephew. And I will say, I thought I was shocked by this outcome. Did I
Yeah.
really care? Not really.
No.
No.
And that's the thing. I sat there and I was like, why am I
And
supposed to care
I'm
about
glad it
this?
wrapped up that same episode. Like I think that's it. I think we don't see him anymore after
Yeah.
what happens to him later. But um so yeah.
Yeah. I
Whatever.
feel it would have been way more impactful had the sister been a dark friend, if they wanted to go
Mm,
for that dramatic effect, because she talks at length in these episodes of what she had to do to get her family back
yeah.
to not being destitute and in good regard. So to me, I was sitting here thinking, okay, this would have been a lot more evocative if it had been the
Yeah.
sister rather than the nephew. Because I
Yeah, you
mean,
can because you can change these characters because
yeah,
they don't really have a large impact on the story as a whole. So that's fine. But yeah,
yeah,
I mean, so I was surprised. I was shocked to learn he was a dark friend, but at the same time, it's like
yeah.
whatever.
All right. So we've arrived to the point where it's my favorite part of this episode, despite the fact that this would not have all had happened in the books. But Rand showing up in Dream World making demands of Lanfear and Lanfear going and blowing everything up. It was just so classic Lanfear. I was living for this scene. She's in her whole white outfit and she makes a comment about how it's been like 3,000 years and here she is doing this again. I love that it was the comment again. I was like, oh, Lanfear is so good. So she's great.
I totally agree. 100% loved such this was one of those good changes and this goes back to somebody mentioning early in the comments that they do the villains really well in this show.
Yeah.
And I think it and I was telling my spouse this the other day. In the books, the Forsaken especially are very complacent until the
Yeah.
last few chapters of the books,
Always.
and they're just a lot of times they're just talking about the thing, talking about Rand or doing this. Here we're seeing some action, like some live action. I mean, Lanfear should have nothing to fear. She's like, she may not be the strongest Aes Sedai, but she's got she's got knowledge of power that makes her more powerful than most
Yeah.
people, and she is probably the most powerful person during that time period.
Oh,
So
yeah.
she should have nothing to fear of just like showing up and just blowing the shit out of everything. And I just love the scene. And like I said, I think her back in white was in bigger impact because
Yeah.
it was such a contrast to her dark hair and just you don't imagine white people in white being
Yeah.
evil,
So murderous. Yeah.
and they should have had her in that the whole time because I think it made a big impact.
I agree.
But I love the scene,
I also loved this
and I
costume
love the
change.
and I
It's
love
my
the
favorite Lanfear costume so
and I
far.
love it and I love the change. So
Yeah, so Lanfear for me is stealing the show right now. Like she is the
and that
one
actress
that
is so and that actress is so good.
she's so good. And I mean, the thing is with her that she feeds off of every scene partner beautifully, I feel like. It's not that she does well with one scene partner and then I'm less interested with the others. It's all of them that she's really good with.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is a
I mean,
good point.
Charlotte
Yeah,
are a hefty, hefty price.
yeah.
But and yes, those
Which
deaths
is
are all
something that which I will say is something that we are missing. I think is some dark, some of the Spawn. I do think they kind of I think gave up on the Spawn a little bit. Hopefully we
yeah.
get back to that again a little bit.
For sure. And for everyone in the comments, I completely agree. This is like Rand is responsible for all these people dying, so he can go save one person. That's that's kind of the whole thing. But
Yep,
the Aes Sedai are looking at it from the perspective of
Dark Hounds.
he
Yeah.
needs to be at Falm to declare himself the Dragon Reborn. Like it's a big deal. So there's that whole dynamic. But okay, before we get to our big final thing. I will say for me, this one last nitpicky thing, and this is a very personal thing of mine, is when people very clearly film during the day and then put on that bad nighttime filter, it drives me crazy. And with the Avienda and her crew and Perrin, I'm looking at this and going, this is clearly filmed at noon, peak sunlight, and they've just gone filter, and it's so bad. It drives me absolutely nuts. I can't stand it.
I don't.
But
Yeah, I didn't see why we needed the filter. I do like when I do like we got Avienda's reaction to the ocean. I thought that was a
yeah,
pretty cool touch, though. You know, the hand gesture of "this is all water," you know, question mark. Um, I appreciated that. The filter was unnecessary.
it's so
Um,
bad. I don't know why they felt they needed it.
yeah.
We obviously get that he's
I
trying to
hope
get her
because
away.
we got uh, Bane and Chiad that we do get Gull at some point as well too. So
Yeah, that would be nice. That would definitely be nice. Okay, so Egwene is rebraiding her hair, which is interesting, right? Because Egwene, when she was in the tower, had no braid in her hair and was like, I'm beyond braid Egwene. I'm better than Two Rivers
right,
Egwene type
yeah.
thing. And now that she's been stripped of her essence and who she is, she's desperately trying to cling on to it and is rebraiding her hair. So this is not something that was really emphasized in the books. Hi, Yoshi. But I do think was a nice touch that they're kind of trying to show that Egwene is desperately trying to hold on to who she is. But I found that this was a very strong distinction between Book Egwene and Show Egwene in this scene that she has with Rena.
Mhm.
Book Egwene is broken at this point. Like she is very much given up. Min keeps trying to encourage her because Min is in Falm in the books, and Egwene is struggling to carry on. And in this scenario, Egwene is very much not struggling to hold on to the idea that she's gonna defeat Rena somehow and get out of this, and she's gonna go back to being Egwene and not the Damani Egwene. So I thought that this was an interesting choice that they've gone this way with her in the
I
show.
I liked the change actually. I was really upset to see her just kind of just sitting there downtrodden as she's being washed, and I thought I
So
thought
awkward.
I thought the line Rana, I will kill you. You know, I thought that
Yeah.
was I was like, oh, I was that made me really that was so cool. I thought that was really well executed, that line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely leaning into the idea that Egwene is
I
probably
will
the strongest character.
I was waiting for another I think Rena was like just so shocked. That's why we didn't see like a punishment scene. But
Yeah,
I think this will lead to her getting a pet name next well our last episode kind of
it's
thing.
possible. Yeah, it's
And I
definitely
think
possible.
that's going to be like, I think we might see a little bit of what you were mentioning about that broken Elaine or Egwene. Maybe
Mhm.
we might get that a little bit. Maybe we were still
Maybe.
in the rebel stage of Egwene here,
It's
but
possible, yeah.
I thought that was just really good because um, I also appreciate that Rena delivered what the Sanchen were about, that they were here to fight the last battle,
Sure.
unite quote unquote the nations together to do the last battle. So I do appreciate a little bit of that lore as well here.
I agree, Robert. I personally feel like it would have had more impact if she wasn't in the room to hear it. I agree, just
Hmm.
because I do feel like by saying it to Rena, there should have been a punishment,
Yeah,
and that would
yeah,
have taken away that.
I agree with Daniel here, where she will
Yeah,
probably.
Daniel, that's you and Chris are very much in agreement on that part. Okay, so the end of the episode is kind of this big buildup where we see that Rand is being shielded by Leanne. And I thought this was strange because obviously Logain was further advanced in using the one power than Rand, but Rand is the dragon and it takes only Leanne to shield him, whereas it took three Aes Sedai at all times to shield Logain, which I feel like is it's strange to me. This just seems a little odd. But we know that Lanfear is out bombing everything outside while Rand is inside with Maureen. And Varen comes in her brown Aja magnificence and very much does not tell a lie, but phrases things differently than the intention might have been. So,
Here I felt like she did lie. I don't remember. I'm
so
trying
she
to
says
remember
it's
her.
in
I,
order,
she
but
says
she
it's in
doesn't say who
order.
it's in order from because the implication is that the order is coming from
Okay.
Varen. It's not coming from
Okay. All
Siwan.
right. I might have missed that. I was going to ask you this because I wanted to walk through this scene a little bit because I was trying to catch uh Viren in a lie here. But and then Moraine does say you are
You
very
chose your
clever.
words. Yeah.
You're very clever with your words,
Yep.
kind of thing. So I was just kind of curious with that. So okay, cool. I'm glad
Yes.
you caught that because
So,
I missed the I knew I was trying to look for the interpretation, but it felt
yeah,
like she was directly saying, you know, you need to go out here because
sure.
yeah.
In regards to your comment here, Chris, I agree. The fact is that in the book, Logain can see Taviran, but it seems that they've changed that for the show and that he can just see people who channel. So that seems to be, and yes, Daniel, we are saying the exact same thing. So yeah, I definitely feel like they've changed it to sea weaves rather than Taviran, but that's a choice that they're choosing to make. But they get Rand out of his little shield and they say, okay, we've got this Ogier map. There's a waygate. We're going to get to the waygate. It's going to all be great. We're going to get Rand to Falm. He needs to get to Falm so that he can race across the sky and be declared the Dragon Reborn. Everyone is saying the same thing to each other and they're all excited because the dragon's going to be there. And before we have that whole little thing, we see that Lan goes out of his way. I like that little stretch that just happened with your cat. Lan goes out of his way to have that interaction with Logain to determine whether or not Maureen has actually been stilled, which is a whole little side thing. And then when they get to the Waygate, they waste a ton of time by Lan saying, "You're not stilled, you've been shielded, and Rand's gonna be the one to break it for you." Like this whole thing is kind of very anticlimactic based on the fact that we've made Moraine just this terrible character for the whole season because she's dealing with the repercussions of being stilled.
Yeah.
And it just felt so boring that, and her little when she can feel the one power again. I was hoping there was gonna be like an explosion come out of her or something that it showed that there was all this pent up anger and depression or rage, whatever you want to call it. But it just missed
It
the
was
mark.
like the scene. It was like
Yes, it just really missed the mark. Exactly.
it
So
was a
yeah,
representation of the
I
scene.
didn't love
Um,
that. Didn't love it.
I'm just I the only thing I have to say is I'm just so relieved that this is wrapped up. I'm hoping that we get back to like a little more of a power moraine, but at the same time we're not because of how this scene ends, which I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
Which
So
is basically ba- they spent the budget land for kicking their butt.
yeah.
Um, I yeah. I mean, when we're getting here until like when Lanfear intervenes and all that, I
Mhm.
mean, she does want to kill Moraine, but um, and maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but I think the problem I have here is they all just kind of casually just stand with Lanfear. He's
Yeah.
just kind of standing around, and then they all go in the way gate together as buddies or something. It's so bizarre to me,
Yeah.
that the way that happened.
I agree, Daniel. I mean, it's not like Lan has been to any famous libraries in the last little bit.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah, I agree, Elaine. That's what I'm talking about, Elena. It's just yeah, let's just head in the way gate with Lanfear, and
Yeah. I mean, it makes no sense, honestly. I think at this point they realize that Lanfear could have very easily killed Rand, and the fact that she hasn't, excuse me, is questionable. So they feel like maybe that they can get closer to her. I don't really know, but it seems an odd choice to be working with a Forsaken. And it also seems odd that the dragon can only declare himself in this one place because
Right.
in the book, The Great Hunt, Moraine is separated from Rand relatively early into the story. But before she leaves, she gives him something, and you learn that this is the banner of the dragon. And of course, that then comes into play at the end of the story when the horn is blown and Rand basically has to show the banner to the heroes of legend so that they'll fight on behalf of the dragon for the last battle. We've had no banner that's been given so far. So I don't know if that's something that they're going to change because it's not like Moraine is carrying a bunch of stuff with her through the Waygate. Um, but I also wonder now too, do you think Suwan is now shielded? Because that's a plot line later,
Um,
but it's slightly different. So
I think this is going to be another Moraine shielded slash still moment. Is she? Isn't she? I think she's just been brought to her knees, kind of thing here. I
yeah,
don't think she's shielded, um, because she failed. When the rest of the Aes Sedai show up and see Suan in the ground like that, and
yeah,
find out that the Dragon Reborn has escaped,
yeah,
that's going to be. I mean, Lanfear says a broken Aes Sedai or a broken Emelency is better than a dead Emelency.
yeah,
So I think she's just been humbled, and I don't think she's shielded. I don't think, because I think Lanfear knows that the Aes Sedai are going to punish Suan for failing to hold on to the Dragon Reborn. So
probably, yeah. And I mean, that's going to lead to her no longer being the Amerlin. I think that's their way of going about it in the show.
yeah.
Um, so that's kind of an interesting choice that they're going with. But
But again, I just didn't like the fact that, yeah, Moraine is all about the mission. We know that, but the fact that they're just casually just, I'm gonna walk with Lanfear here. She seems pretty cool. She's got the
yeah,
cool outfit on. I'm gonna
agreed,
go. I'm gonna go through a Waygate with her. And just
right?
talk to her. I mean,
So
Land started walking right after she started walking. I'm
yeah,
like,
immediately
that's
after
definitely
Lanfear, like
not Land. Land would be
I've
like
bonded to
Lynn would
somebody
be like
new.
on like holding like Moraine back like this,
Yeah,
being like that shield. Just like
yes,
it was just a weird thing. It's like, I
agreed.
mean, how's that gonna end? How are you guys gonna just say, all right, well, we'll see we'll see in the battle, you
Right.
know.
So this,
Cheers,
yeah, this whole dynamic is very strange. And in regards to your comment here, Robert, I completely agree because this is kind of what I was saying earlier in this episode. While I don't mind the toe for the Aiel, it's not important at this point in the story. What is important at this point of the story is reinforcing why the horn is important and telling people immediate plot that is going to be coming. The toe is not something that we needed dealt with right now. This could have been next season when we're not dealing with something that is on the immediate.
when we work a little more with the IL.
Yeah, and
And
it's not on the immediate precipice of the next episode. It's just strange.
I mean, we got it. We also got it last episode with Ingtar, where he says only the horn matters. And I feel like the drawback on this last episode is, as you were talking about impact, and the show loses a lot of those impact moments,
Yeah.
and or not focus on the right impact moments, I guess I should say. It seems like in this episode it was all about Moraine's nephew being a dark friend. That was the
Yeah.
impact moment of this show. So where we find out Moraine was shielded and Suwan humbled, it didn't leave as much of an impact because that wasn't the emphasis of the moment. So I have a feeling like this horn thing is just it's either going to get all rushed into
Yeah.
the last episode where suddenly everybody's obsessed with the horn, and
And we won't remember why.
and the only other thing I can think of is maybe the San, and the one note I put is maybe the Sanchen have the dragon banner for some reason. Who knows?
Interesting. The collector guy, maybe.
Or yeah, or like you said, maybe Moraine will pull it out of her ass or something and
I mean,
say,
her dress is really big. It's full of stuff. Clearly, that's what's propping it out. It's not a crinoline. It's all these extra objects. But this is an interesting point, Chris. I would agree that going forward, it's definitely going to be assumed that Moraine is Black Aja, which, because we know that Leandrin is a Black Aja, she's going to know that Moraine's not a Black Aja. So it'll be interesting to see how she kind of plays that up, because she probably will to her own advantage.
That'll be an interesting change to the storyline, I think.
Yeah, so I am curious to see. I mean, I don't know if she will tell anyone or not, because my thought was people have to have a general idea of what's going on based on the fact that Suan brought all the sitting members of the Aja to Kyrain. Like, that was my impression. She might not have given the full extent of what was going on, but I would think that they know something super significant has taken place for them to all be rallied to this.
I mean, there are scenes where they're talking about like, I want to go back to the one scene as because I was so happy that the scene played out. I forgot to mention this, but the Rand and Land scene prior to seeing the thing, you know, Rand's talking about getting gentled and all of that, and there's guards right there. So it's like we're not being really secretive about I'm the Dragon Reborn right now. It seems
Yeah,
like
no, not really.
everybody in Kyrene seems to know that the Dragon Reborn is here, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that was, and I don't know if pretend I guess the guards didn't hear, or they're
Right.
so loyal to Swan that they won't say a word. But I mean, shit, if the Dragon Reborn is right there,
Yeah, I don't know how they're gonna go about this. We will see. But the end of the episode is them going through the Waygate. And that's it. And I don't know if you watched the preview for next week, but okay, so it basically just looks like a lot of fighting for next week, which, I mean, we were to anticipate. The whole thing is the climax is to get everybody to farm so that there's going to be this big battle, but there's all these little side plots that are basically happening. My hope going forward to this episode, okay, yes. Thank you. So yes, thank you, Elena. This is I thought about this 2 minutes ago. I'm so out of it, and then I forgot already. So, my thinking is that, because you and I were kind of talking about this, that we think possibly every final episode of a season we're gonna get a flashback of Luz, and I wish that we got a lot more of Luz Theron. But going into the season, I was hoping maybe we'll get the Eye of the World prologue to show going forward that Rand's insanity is imminent, because by season 3, Rand should really start having psychotic episodes. But I think it's going to be a flashback between Ishmael, Lanfear, and Luz Theron, especially based on the fact that Moraine made that quip in this episode that the three of them used to be best friends before the breaking. And yeah.
And we even got that. We actually saw it too. We saw Luz Theron, and I think on a production side, they wouldn't just have that one little quick flash of these three characters if they weren't going to do more with it.
Yes.
So I would love that as the prologue. That'd be pretty awesome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to show how Luz died, Elena. Yeah, she basically said that the three of them were best friends, which Ishmael and Luz Theron were very good friends before the breaking, which I think is why it's really heartbreaking to lose that Ishmael does turn to the dark. And of course, Lanfear and him were romantically linked prior to her becoming a crazy stalker ex-girlfriend. But In regards to what are you referencing here, Chris? Now only really being explored in book 5. Please elaborate so I have a general idea. But I'm hoping Rand has a big moment at the end of that episode or at some point in that episode. Because if not, the show has significantly failed in establishing the fact that the dragon is the most important person.
So yeah, and I did have to watch that preview twice.
I did too.
The I guess the speaker was Laurel, so he's rallying people up, which is
Possible.
interesting. Yeah.
Do we think Ishi will die? No.
No.
No, I don't.
Nope. No, he's got a I don't want to say anything, but he's got a important thing to do in the later portion. But he is temporarily if they play it out according to books, he is temporarily taken out for a while.
Yeah, a little bit. So one of the things that I thought was interesting / strange in the preview is we've kind of talked about this. The seals in the book were more, in my opinion, a metaphorical thing rather than these physical location seals. And it seemed that they've been collecting the seals, Lanfear and Ishmael, in the preview. Because they're talking about the Forsaken, and then they're standing in this room staring at these different sized, what look like seals. And I counted 6. So I'm wondering if our total of Forsaken is going to be 8, despite the fact that they've mentioned that there are more Forsaken than 8. I believe they mentioned that. I think Stefan was the one that mentioned.
I counted the statues. Man, I forget. I did count. He had the little, like they look like canoptic jars on that prayer thing. And I thought I counted 8.
So
do you
8
think I counted 8
statues, and
when we were starting to eliminate Forsaken, I thought it was going to be 4 men, 4 female. I thought it was going. I think I had it, but I might be wrong on that. But
I'll be interested to see who they choose to keep and who they choose to get rid of. Obviously, we've skipped over the 2 from Eye of the World.
And
I very much think we're skipping Bilal, which I'm okay with.
I think we're going to skip because we're not doing anything of Camlin. I think we're going to skip Robin.
Maybe.
So that's 4. And then I think I think for the females, I think it's either going to be Masana or now I'm thinking Semiraj. But I'm leaning more to Masana because Masana is tower based, and I'm thinking they're giving that more to Leandrin. I don't think they're going to expose Leandrin as Black Aja yet. Or until at least the girls get an opportunity to tell who is it. That's a possibility too.
Is this something that you've read that's confirmed, Elena, or is this your personal opinion on that? Because I would definitely be interested in knowing that.
But they did mention Moghedien, so we know she's there. We know Grendel's going to be in there. We just don't know the guys or the remaining female Forsaken yet. So
I feel like there was another one that was mentioned though, right? Wasn't it? They mentioned 3 Forsaken.
I think she said Moghedien, then she said Grendel, and then she said the boys. So
do we remember what episode that was in? Was that 2 episodes ago?
That was a couple episodes ago. Not last one, but I think prior.
Yeah, all she said is Moghedien and Grendel. I'm looking at my notes
and then she said the boys, which made me think that we might even not get both Masana and Semiraj. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But Daniel, I think, pointed out that Semiraj and Lanfear have a very antagonistic relationship and they hate each other.
Shocker.
Which is why Lanfear wore white because Semiraj wore black. But obviously they're not going that direction because Lanford's been wearing a lot of dominatrix black, which
She
is
only
what you
wears
kind of
black and
which
white.
you
Yeah.
kind of see Semiraj in because she's the torturer. She's kind
Yeah.
of I don't think she's very sexual SMM, but she's she's more of that torturer kind of
Yeah.
person. So um yeah, and then Masana I'm not too sure of because she is tower based, but they are doing a lot with you know uh uh, uh Leandrin maybe fulfilling that Masana role.
Yeah, that's what Chris is saying. I mean, that's an entire possibility. But my main hope for next episode is that Rand gets a big moment and that Matt blows the horn. At this point, that's pretty much all I'm hoping for. I would love for them to reestablish why the horn is important without it being like a 2-second thing. I also won't be surprised if we get a really weird and unexpected visit by Pat and Fane. That will make no sense. But who knows? Who knows? What are your hopes for next episode?
Too many. I mean, yeah. I mean, I would. They need a strong finish after our horrible lackluster end of season one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt needs to blow the horn. Ran and Ish need the fight in the air,
Yep,
the
this
dragon
guy.
reborn kind
Yeah.
of thing. I think the rest of it kind of goes hand in hand. Egwene getting rescued, uh, the Shinarans fighting the Sanchan or whatever, and because they go back, they retreat and they leave for temporarily off the shore. So I mean that has to be kind of an embed impact. It is odd to have the Aiel there, but there they are. Yeah, I guess just those major things, and then something with Pat and Fane. Now we do see their dagger, so I imagine there's going to be an interaction at some point. We did see the dagger in the preview with in front of Matt, so maybe there's going to be some interaction with Patton, but who knows at this point? But like you said, it's going to be anticlimactic because they don't do anything with Patton Fane. You're muted.
Sorry. That's a good question for if it's going to be in the dream world or not. I could see it going either way, honestly. I hope that it's not because everyone needs to see it because that's what tells the world that the dragon is back.
Because I think in the book it did seem like we were in the dream world, but then
You realize you're not.
we find out that it was
Yeah.
in fact real, that everybody saw it. So
yeah, and that's the thing that carries over right into book 3 is everyone goes around kind of saying, I was there, I saw the dragon. And yeah, and everyone at that point knows Rand al'Thor is the dragon.
And if they continue on with Mazma, that's kind of like what breaks him and becomes like the crazy prophet, for Rand. So
yeah, we haven't seen much of him since
yeah.
since the others.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I like to see a return of the Shinarans. I mean, something, curious what they do with Ingtar. Again, you kind of forgot about him at this
100%.
point.
Like it's not meaningful now that he's a dark friend.
Yeah, he stopped showing up like what, episode 2 or 3, and then they just
and he's in the preview.
We got a few scenes. I did appreciate he was the one who said only the horn matters. I'm like, thank you, somebody said it.
Yeah, I am wondering if he's not going to be a dark friend in the show anymore, despite the fact that earlier in the season I was like, you guys are making it abundantly clear that he is a dark friend.
Yeah, maybe.
But it might be that we don't find that out.
Yeah,
we might not find that out until next season. And maybe they'll drag that out a little bit more. I don't know. There's so much stuff to do in an hour next week. I think it'll probably be an hour and a half.
I hope it's a longer.
It needs to be. So yeah, I'll be curious.
We kind of got to my fear is this last episode might feel rushed because suddenly, hey, we got to get to everybody to film.
Yes.
Let's do it at the very end of episode 9 or 8 or 7. I mean, and have episode 8 finally thing, and it's just like, man, there's a lot to wrap up.
Yeah, and it's interesting because last time in season 1 when we got to episode 7, I remember really liking episode 7 and feeling very positive going into the final, and hated it, still hate it. So I'm hoping that that is not a repeat here, because they've shown that they can do an okay job getting certain people back on track and trajectory wise.
Mhm.
But if they screw this up in the final episode, I don't know how forgiving audiences are going to be for another season. So it'll be interesting to see going forward what all is going to happen. But
Then,
yeah.
yeah, and then, yeah, we'll see.
Well, everybody, this was episode 7. Next week we will be talking about the finale. I will be in a different setting. I'm going on vacation, but I will still be tuning in for our chat. So next Friday we will be doing that, and then the following Saturday, I believe, on the 14th. I'm pulling up
14.
my calendar now to see if that's what it is. Yes, the following Saturday, Chris and I will be having a special guest, and that special guest is going to be Bookborn. She's going to be joining us to do a season recap on what we all thought of the show. It'll be more in-depth book to show comparison and discussion, especially based on the fact that we will have the whole season to review, and we can actually then talk about the context of season 1 and season 2 and what our hopes are going forward if we are not completely upset by a finale. So hopefully we will have a positive outcome next week. Thank you. We appreciate it. We appreciate you guys being in the comments. If you are watching this on a rewatch, please let us know what you thought of the episode down below. And as always, we will see you guys next week. So I hope everyone has a lovely weekend, and we will catch you next Friday.
We appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Have a good one.